Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Stories from the Founders. This is Josh Wingate, Startup Warrior. I'm your host today, and we're going to delve into the gritty, thrilling roller coaster journey of building an early stage startup. On Stories from the Founders, we believe that each startup is a story of masterclass and resilience, innovation, pushing the boundaries. And our mission is really to offer you, the listeners, a blend of inspiration and hard-earned wisdom that you can take on your own adventures. So today we have a special guest, Zach Ahlstedt. He's CEO of OutPave. He's a founder who's trying to build a new product that gives time back to small business owners. Thank you for coming on, Zach. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. Well, to give everyone here context on who you are, where you're going, if you could just give us the abbreviated version of what it is you do.
Yeah, so OutPave is an expense invoice management product for small to mid-sized businesses. We really are focused on home service companies, construction firms that are out there. These guys are really pretty underserved. A lot of them working out of shoeboxes and just manual expense reports on Excel sheets. It's been really eye-opening for us, especially coming from the expense management field. That's where I spent my entire career at a large company that's been around forever. Won't say their name. But it's great to get out there and talk to customers. It's one of the things that really drove us to do this, is kind of go after somebody who has a real problem and try to solve it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I know you have a lot of exciting things going on today, but we like to hear the bad just as much as the good, because every founder knows that that's where growth truly happens, especially in the early days of building your business. So I'd like to hear from you, and I know the founders would love to hear it as well, the story of how your startup came to be. What really inspired you to take this path?
Man, that's a good question. So I came from a big company where they had an internal competition where you could submit new product ideas. And so after being in different services roles or product management, business development, kind of all over the place, spent my whole career there. We pitched this idea. We made it to the end of this and ended up where it didn't work out. But got a lot of advice from that company, people that I really respected, that said, you've got a market, you've got an idea, go chase it. So in March, I left that company and went out on my own. But it's been a challenge, right? One of the things we've been lucky at is building our team, but it's been a real challenge in terms of building everything from scratch. Things you take for granted in the corporate world, they're just not there. I could go on and on. You probably have to tell me to shut up if I talk about it. But
yeah. Well, I know that building a team, you probably have 100 stories just from that alone. I think that maybe if you could just dive into that a little bit more. What was your approach to building a solid team and the team that you have today?
Yeah. So when we started out, I knew that I was going to need co-founders, basically having to start over, had an idea, a vision for the product. But we've changed it, obviously, because we learned a lot. But I really needed some people. This is something I've heard. We've read a bunch of books, and you got to have a team of people that you like, and you trust, right? And so reached out to a friend of mine who's been in technology for a long time. His name is David Cawthorn. He's one of my co-founders, and went to David and said, "Hey, here's what I'm doing." And he was like, "I'm in, let's go for it." And so it was great. It kind of serendipity that it worked out that way, but it was fantastic for us. Our marketer, Julie, she's not a founder, she's our first employee. Julie and I trained for Ironman together and went through wars together, for years and years. And it's been great because she came in and it's sweat equity, man. Everybody is putting in their own time and their own resources to make this happen. And I know a lot of founders talk about it's the hardest thing to build a team. I agree, but I've been so lucky with co-founders and the engineers and the designer we got. We just have been so lucky in all of that.
Yeah, no, it takes a lot to really get someone to buy in your vision, something you came up with, but for them to really, I wouldn't call it sacrifice because they'll see a payoff in the long run, but to essentially jump ship from where their current situation, especially if they're coming from a corporate position or something like that. And for you to be able to go out there and actually get both Julie and David to get on board and actually, ride this crazy ride that you're doing. I mean, good job there. And I'm sure that there have definitely been some critical mistakes on the way, though.
Oh yeah,
doing this, and that makes me wonder. With that whole process, I'm sure it couldn't have been entirely that straightforward. If you could share with me just maybe a critical mistake that you made in your early stages, and this could be with your business, but maybe also with those mistakes, the lessons that you actually learned from those mistakes.
Yeah, two things are around the same kind of problem. So we're really lucky in building the core of our team, but we needed help. And so, like a lot of bootstrap founders, we're getting engineering help from different places. We really needed design help. We needed a designer to come in and take our user journeys and some ideas that we had, just scribble down drawings and ideas that we wanted to, and build it into a great UX. I think you gotta. One thing I would tell founders is pick your team wisely, because we went out there and we found just contractors and they're mercenaries. There's nothing wrong with that if you have a really
Mhm.
firm vision for what you want to do. But we ended up going with a designer, and while they were great in doing exactly what we said, that was kind of a problem,
Yeah.
because we needed a designer and we got one, and his name's Alvaro. He's fantastic. Shout out to you, Alvaro, if you're listening. Alvaro came in and took what we had built and said, okay, here's the major gaps. When your users are doing this, what about this? And so we ended up spending some money early on that that we wish we had did. Another thing is we tried to develop our own OCR instead of using a partner, and so we spent some money on that. Although it was fantastic, gave us a base, it was probably too much for us right in the early going, because building
Yeah.
that partner ecosystem was also something that we started to do as we moved on.
Yeah. 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 I
Yeah.
mean, for me personally, I've made mistakes in the past of working with family, some really close friends. Those never really worked out well. I've had one good instance of having somebody very close to me actually have a, help me build a successful business, and that relationship stays strong. So I'm wondering, you mentioned a couple of things about Jules and David and them having personal ties with you. Would you put them in that box of being a close friend? And if that is the case, what does that say about the old adage of never mixing friends and business together?
I'm going to quote great Michael Scott and say, business is the most personal thing you can do.
Ah,
Goes against the grain and tell you, like, so David, I hope it's not true for me. David and I have been friends since I think we were about 10, 11 years old.
yeah,
And both of us, our careers were parallel, but in different, companies. But we've been, I don't think we're going to run into that. Hell, who knows? We could, but
yeah,
I seriously doubt that. And the fact that Julie and I have been, good friends for a long time. And what's so awesome is her husband's our lawyer. So I mean, this is a group of people that actually love
yeah,
to be together and love to spend time together. And yeah, I would consider them very personal, close to the friends. And if this blows up in our face, we're all going to be better for it. And
yeah,
we all kind of have
yeah,
taken that on, knowing it's a
yeah,
possibility that this
yeah.
could blow up at us.
Going against the grain. I love it. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
entrepreneurship is. So, you want to take all those myths and throw them in the trash can and just keep going,
yeah.
because this means a lot more than what you guys are really setting out to do. I know that as far as how you've been going forward and building your startup, all of you probably didn't have experience building a business prior. Is that right?
Yeah, all of us are coming from a very insulated corporate experience.
Yeah.
So David's coming from the engineering side, I'm coming from the service and product side,
Yeah.
and Julie's been on the marketing side. But all of us have been able to walk into roles where you have a lot of access to data, to different things like a sales pipeline.
Yeah.
Taking that for granted, a marketing person that you go, hey, go build material, and they're like, what's the message?
Yeah.
It's very exercise and hubris,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit, thinking that we could do everything and then you're learning as you go. But it's been great. I mean, it has the pitfalls, right? We've
Yeah.
run into problems but so far it's been fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Learning as it goes, the best way to put it. Building a business for the first time is just pretty much scraping your knees and then getting up and then continuing forward. But, I would say that, the random number, but like probably about 95% of it is 100% you just trying to essentially figure it out on your own. But there's always some help that you need when you're going forward. And I wanted to maybe hear from you if you could talk a little bit about your experiences with outside mentorship from people who've built businesses before, networking in the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, so I've been really lucky. One of the things I had a chance to do at my previous role was I got to work with startups that were
Mhm.
building add-on services that went with their product. And so I spent a lot of time in Santa Clara, right around the startup ecosystem, right there in Silicon Valley. And it's been fantastic to reach out to those founders and say, what did you do whenever you started? And hear the stories. I'm lucky enough to know some of the guys who founded it company that my previous employer, they ended up acquiring them,
Mhm.
how scrappy they were, how they were consulting on the side, what they had to do to make it, the march to 100 customers, hearing that story. And I a lot of times where I get wide-eyed and just get excited thinking about, man, I can't wait for us to go through that. But
Yeah.
I've had so many great mentors, and I still have them in my life that have really kind of lit the way for us. I mean, they're the reason that I'm doing this. I
Yeah.
saw them do it. I saw them get to have success. And yes, it's not a given that we're going to have it, but come hell or high water, we're going to figure it out or
Yeah.
die trying.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look around pretty much any of the great entrepreneurs, you name it, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, most big names, they all had some sort of mentor, and they'll tell you that, that was pretty much what helped them get through it. And I have my own personal mentor that in the early days were, guiding through. And I think that what you just said was really a key point, was that you saw that they were able to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's really not all you need, but the spark to get everything going. And same instance for me and a lot of the other entrepreneurs I worked with is that they just needed to believe by seeing somebody else do it. And then, they help them guide them a little bit further. But so what would be the best advice that you've ever received as a founder? I mean, how has that influenced you, and how does that, impact your approach as you continue to build?
So one of my mentors said it, and I think he quoted it from somewhere, but he always says it to me, and he still does, is get out of the building.
Mhm.
Start talking to customers as early as you can, because talking to customers is going to teach you way more than anything you can assume when you're trying to build out a user journey map around your idea that you
Mhm.
think is so perfect. We thought we had a great idea. We started getting feedback from customers like, man, we didn't think about X, Y, Z. And so I think getting out of the building as a product person, it's awesome to talk to customers and to just let them go. Say,
Yeah.
hey, what are the biggest problems that you're facing? How are you doing it today? And just letting them go and see,
Yeah.
okay, now how can I be creative in how we solve this? Instead of saying, I have a solution, my solution will fit into what you're going to do. It's no, what are your problems? Now let me go figure out an innovative way to fix it. I
Yeah.
think that's probably been the best advice I had.
Yeah.
Get out of the building.
Yeah, well, for founders that, they have a product, they're kind of like building it up a little bit. Maybe they feel that it's just not yet ready, because that is 100% true. You need to just start showing it, and you can't be
Yep.
afraid of showing your ugly baby. But with that comes a lot of rejection, as you know, right?
Oh yeah.
So
I
for
do.
somebody who maybe hasn't been as experienced and faced tons of rejection and told no over and over and over, tell me about a time that you hit some major pitfalls, big time rejection, or even, if you want to call it failure. How did that impact your business approach and moving forward?
Well, early on, we tried to partner with a couple of different EDCs. For people that don't know what that's Economic Development Corps. They're typically attached to cities.
Mm.
We tried early on to go out there, and this was before we really even honed what we were going to do. We had this great idea, and we thought we nailed it. It was fantastic. And they sent us a rejection letter. And so I was very gracious in accepting that, but tried to ask, what were we doing? We weren't convincing enough. Our market wasn't large enough. We weren't clear on what we were doing. It was a reality check for us. That's before
Yeah.
we met you guys at Startup Warrior. I
Mm.
mean, it was a big catalyst for us to go out there and say, we need to get advice on how we present that. And
Yeah.
so much that we did with Startup Warrior was a way that we fixed that. I mean, some of the feedback we got from you guys was so critical. And for us, the way we presented it, the way we presented our data, the way we presented our business model, everything got better.
Yeah.
And it was a learning experience for us getting a rejection early on that we thought we had it in the bag. We're like, we got it. We didn't get it.
Yeah.
So, and we've had a couple of those, right? We've had
Yeah.
a couple of angel investor networks that have turned us down. But you know what? So what? Every time we get a no, we're closer to that yes.
Yeah.
It only takes one yes, and then we're
Yeah.
going. We got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And when you're searching for that yes, I mean, you have to go out there and pretty much in some cases wing it, but that comes with a lot of tough decisions that you need to make. And I can recall several times where we had to make a major pivot in our business, and with what seemed like the right move at the time, always sometimes will end up being the complete wrong answer. Now, you never want to get caught in a "I told you so" situation, especially if you have co-founders. So,
Yeah.
you as you being the CEO, you always have to make that judgment call whether or not your team likes it. So I think that, how getting a good understanding of how you make tough decisions, when there is no clear right or wrong answer, how do you normally go about that?
Well, one thing that we do, and we've learned this too, is we're going to come. We all have the same, or what of the same mind and our vision, what we want to accomplish. But how we get there is where sometimes there's disagreement.
Yeah.
And we don't take a vote necessarily. We present the problem, everybody kind of voices their opinion, and we make a decision. And typically, and it's never that I want to come down with an iron fist and say it's going to be my way, the highway. I read Build by Tony Fadell talked about this, where Steve Jobs had to be convinced that they needed to support iTunes on non-Mac machines. And he kicked and screamed the whole way and finally said, okay, I'm going to adjust my vision based on the data that the team's presented me. So I'll feel really strongly about something. But what's great is having a team you can trust where an engineer comes in and goes, it's just not possible. We got to do this, or this to do that. So taking in all the information and making a better decision, that's why you have a team.
Yeah.
And you trust them. And in marketing messaging, I mean, Jules has been fantastic in that, helping make sure that we're not presenting something that's too confusing. We're like, oh, we can create a creative business model. Sometimes it's the easiest answer is just the right one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think we run into those situations where it's like, even on product, I mean, ultimately, I feel empowered by my team to make a decision on what we're going to do, but I don't have to ask for that authority, right? That's something that we know that we share it together, and that I'm respected enough about them and I respect them enough to know when to change my mind.
Yeah.
So,
well, how many times a week do you have to swallow your pride and keep it?
Oh, I just did it right before we got on this call. I was like, well, no, that's not what. And then I had to sit there and think. I was like, oh, you're right. We should remove that. That is totally redundant and stupid. Just be trying to be really cool and creative in the product. I'm like, that was dumb. We should have changed it. So and it's a reality check, right? I mean, you get more information, more people looking at it. Even if customers will pick on it, it's like, hey, you thought you were doing this, but this was, brother, this looks stupid. And so, I think I just had one of those situations right before we got hopped on. I'm like, you know what? Go for it. You're right. Looking at it again, you're right.
I believe it gets easier every single time,
We get a little bit better every day. That was kind of David. I'm copying, I'm taking a quote out of David, which I know everybody says that, but every time we pitch, every time that we go through the product and we go through and make sure that the flows are right, or we're doing anything at all, we're getting a little bit better every single time. And that's the goal. It's like consistency, showing up.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty similar to the Kaizen philosophy of 1% better every single day. And Toyota applies that very well in their business model. And, if you can actually perform that, that's 365% every year, and you just keep growing. But
that's what we're doing.
We talked a little bit about the background and you building the business and building a team and all of that. And I think that you definitely, and every founder, even 6 months into building a business, you gain so much wisdom and you know how to do things differently. But when you get a little bit further into a year or 2 years, I bet there's some times that you kind of think back like, wow, hindsight, definitely 2020, but I shouldn't have done that. So if you could go back to like one of the first days of your startup journey, I mean, what would you do differently?
Well, I can tell you one thing that we would do right now is we started out as an LLC and now we're going to move to a C Corp, right, for investors. This was something that we learned early on, or we just learned, right, to work with you guys and with others. It's like, that was a mistake that we made. Not too terrible, right? Because we're just trying to get out the door. But there were different pieces like that I've learned. The business, the management of the business. When you're everything, you're not just a product and a visionary and the guy getting out there doing the tap dance. You're also having to worry about paying contractors on time, setting up your invoices, capturing everything, making sure you got W-9s for everybody, all these different pieces. I mean, we've had to chase people down. Now I know to ask when we're working with somebody. So I think a lot of the financial decisions we've made, not terrible. I think we're doing really great, actually. But there's been little things in terms of our formation and everything else that I would go back and change now. But the only way we got to learn that is by just saying, F it, we're going to go full board and try to figure it out.
Yeah. I always try to repeat in my head, at least, that there are no mistakes, only opportunities. And obviously you wouldn't be where you are today without making those mistakes. So, they're all necessary in growth. Well, Zach, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm sure that, everything that you've done up to this point, it's been absolutely an incredible journey, right? And, I think that, is there any final things that you'd like to say to the founders that are listening today?
Yeah, I think, I wish someone had encouraged me more when especially if you're a founder that's similar to me, or maybe you're not, but you're somebody who's debating if you can do it. Can I do it? Can I do it? You can do it. You don't have to be a super genius to go build a great product. You just got to build a great team around you and bring those people together and make great products. I'm stealing from Marty Kagan a little bit, but I think he'll probably be okay with it. right? Normal people make incredible products because people think they have to be some kind of, Harvard graduate, or they had to go to Berkeley, or they had to go to Stanford. And sometimes I get self-conscious about that, especially in the fintech space, because so many people do come from that area. But that's bullshit. That's total bullshit. If you have an idea, go surround yourself with some people, bootstrap this thing and get going. Because you're never too late to try it. But if you can't be too late, if you're staying in your career, you're just always worried about what could happen. There's a lot of shit that could happen.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great things that can happen too. And even if you fail, you're just going to get better. And guess what? They're still going to say founder on your LinkedIn. So I think it goes a long way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that advice. Well, Zach, for anyone here, if they would like to learn a little bit more about what you do, they can visit you at outpave.com. And if you'd like to contact Zach, he's more than willing to answer any questions or, have a further conversation about his solution. You can do that at zach@outpave.com. Thank you for everyone, who joined us and listened to the story. We'll see you guys on our next episode.